Thanks, Wendy. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, our webinar will be discussing actually a hands-on version of how to use Collaborate Ultra, and we'll also be giving you an update on some of the temporarily deactivated features in Collaborate Ultra that Blackboard was forced to do just because it's being utilized so heavily now. So we will give you an update on those as well. The presenters today are Wendy Tietz from Kent State University, myself, Jennifer Canis from the University of South Florida, and Tracy Miller-Nobles from Austin Community College. And just a quick reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A box for questions down at the bottom of your screen, and we will answer questions at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy.
Great. So, Collaborate Ultra. We're doing this demo style today. So I'm going to be in Collaborate Ultra. To use Collaborate Ultra, your school has to have it. I am aware of no option where you can get it by yourself. Collaborate Ultra is one of my favorite tools because it's easy for students and faculty to use. It's best used for live delivery, and you can record as you go. So without further ado, I'm going to switch over into Collaborate. So this is a course I have. This is an empty course I have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through how to add Collaborate Ultra to your course. And then I'm going to walk through how to use it. And I'm going to share with you tips and tricks that I use with it. I've been using Collaborate Ultra for a couple years now. I used Collaborate for several years before that, and I do teach hundreds of students every semester. So I'm used to delivering my course live with Collaborate Ultra, and it is a favorite tool of mine. So let's get started. So to add Collaborate Ultra, it is a tool in Blackboard, and what I'm going to do, you can add it in this middle part here if you wish. I like to add it in the left navigation bar because it's easy for students to find. So over here, I'm just going to click on Add Menu Item, and then I'm going to add a tool link. So that brings up this box, and it asks me first, what's the name? And I'm just going to put Collaborate Ultra, and then I'll find the tool. Now the tool is Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. If you see a Collaborate tool or a Blackboard Collaborate Scheduling Manager, that's not it. Collaborate Ultra is what we want to do. You also need to click Available to Users, otherwise no one will see it. So I'm going to do that, and I've now added it to my course. To make it easier for students to find, I'm just going to drag it up there and get rid of my remote teaching tip. Okay, so now we've added it to our course. So now I'm going to go into Collaborate Ultra. So when you first go into Collaborate Ultra, you're going to see a screen like this. We are going to talk about creating a session later, but right now we are just doing what you absolutely need to do, the simplest method that you can do to get started, and that's just to use your course room. So I'm going to go into my course room. Once I go into my course room, I have the opportunity to set several options, and I'm going to do that. So the first one is anonymous dial-in. I've never used that. I don't share that. I don't need that, so we're just going to skip that. Now here, guest access. I click yes, and that the reason why is if you allow guest access, that means you have a guest link. So that's what this is right here. And I can hit copy. My guest role is participant. And what that allows me to do, here's the first tip for you, is you copy that desk link, that guest link. You can then open this on your iPad or another device, so you'll be able to see what students see. So that's a way to see what's going on in the course, so you can actually be your own student that way as well. So you can use that guest link to get a view of the class as a student. I don't share that link typically with students. There is a way I do it, but typically not. Session settings. The default attendee role should be participant. I allow recording downloads because you cannot be sure that a student has sufficient bandwidth to view recordings, and a better option is to allow the recording download so they could download it, let it download as ever long as it takes, and then view it later. So you have to allow that to have them. Okay, now this is important. Participants can share audio, share video, post chat messages. Let's talk about share audio. Share audio means that your students will be able to talk with a microphone. And that sounds all really great and everything until you start thinking about the numbers of students that are involved, the bandwidth required. In my class, if I had a class of, say, less than 20 or 30, maybe I would do that. More than 30, there's no way I'm doing that. Typically, I don't have share audio on. I might open it up later for sharing audio, but I'm not going to do it right away. Share video, right now, while we're all in this remote teaching, do not share video unless it's absolutely necessary for your pedagogy, that your participants can share video. If you have a small group and your students are doing presentations, that's certainly a different thing. But if you're just getting on class to chat with each other, the bandwidth is pretty high, requirements are high, and Blackboard is asking that you don't use video unless you need it. Video has a tendency to cause the most lagging and glitches, especially if you don't know if your students have strong Wi-Fi connections or not. So typically you don't need audio and video for your participants. Remember, you have audio and you have video, but those two, use them judiciously. Post-chat messages, that's how your students are going to communicate without audio and video. They'll just chat room, and yes, absolutely, post-chat messages. You can decide whether you want your students to be able to draw on the whiteboard and files. Sometimes I do, typically I don't, unless we're doing a group activity. So typically I don't do that. Now this is important, enable session telephony. This allows your attendees to join the session using a phone. This is absolutely critical to attendees who do not have a strong Wi-Fi signal. If they join the session and they don't have a strong Wi-Fi signal, you will sound like Minnie Mouse. You'll talk really fast and really high, and then there'll be a long silence. So what Blackboard Collaborate is doing is buffering it for them, trying to deliver it all in one chunk. But they can get around that by using the phone for audio. Another tip is every class session is limited to 25 phone lines. So if you have a class of 100 students, do not tell them all to use the phone. It's only going to be the first 25 that get to the phone. So what I do for phone is I don't really emphasize it. I do tell students it's there, but when they have audio trouble, I point them to the phone as an option. So if you have a class of under 25, you're good. But if you have a class more than 25, you want the people that don't need phone to not use it because there are only 25 phone lines available. That is a hard limit from Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. That was before we even got into the remote teaching. Private chat. I only let my students chat privately with me because you don't particularly want them chatting privately to each other because there can be some bullying going on. There can be things going on, and they don't really have a need during live class to chat to each other. So I always do that. I also do not have the bandwidth to supervise all private chats. Okay, so anyway, so I'm going to save my session. I did all the settings I want. Now when I click on Course Room, I'm going to join my course room. Okay, so I'm in Collaborate right now, and I'm joining the room, and I'm the only one in the room right now. Okay, so I would have students join, and you see you have this blank screen here. There's hamburger menus. There's one up here in the top left corner. It's the session menu, and that's where you are allowed to start recording. That's the only thing I do on that session menu there is I start recording there. So we'll just leave that go for now. The other thing that I can do is down here, the Collaborate panel. This is where all our options are that we're going to be talking about. So the first thing we have is we have a chat window. That's the bubble down here. And this is where the students can talk with you and you can say hello. Now, there's no students in with me right now because this is not a real class. But what you'll be able to do is give them messages. They can also join the room and they'll be able to see what you're typing. They'll be able to type back to you. Now, I do have a pseudo student joining me, and my pseudo student has the same name as me. So I shared, my pseudo student is actually Tracy Miller Nobles, and she's joined me so that we can chat and I could say hello to her. Now, when a student joins, they can't see anything that was in the chat window before they joined. So this student would be able to chat with me. If I click on my participants, I'll be able to see who's in my class. I'm the moderator, and my pseudo student, the login that I gave to Tracy, is also my name. And if I click back here, I see there's a message that she has said hello to me. So we can chat back and forth, and that's where one of the powers of Collaborate Ultra is you have that chat room, and it is really Tracy, yes. And so we can talk back and forth, but important to know that when your students join, they can't see anything before when they joined. So sometimes you think, I just typed that, why can't you look back at it? So that's good to know. So thanks, Tracy. But over here in my attendees, I see I'm the moderator, and then I see any students that are attending. And I have some attendee controls here. I can send a chat message directly to Tracy. I could make her a moderator or presenter. So those are options I have for my students. So if I wanted to have a student be able to share their screen, I could make them a presenter on a one-off basis. Also, this is telling me that Tracy's action is excellent right now. Also, when I look at mine, my experience is excellent. If Tracy were having Wi-Fi connections, that would not be 4 bars. It would be 2 bars or 1 bar. And that helps me. If she's having trouble, I can see what's going on. I can suggest maybe she use audio or use the phone for audio. So those are our controls with the moderator, who is me, and then any students who are listed as participants. Okay, I could also remove Tracy from the session. I'm not going to, but I could remove her from the session, but know that she can come right back in. There's no way to permanently remove her. So these are your students who are in your class. So when we talk about security, this platform is in your class, in Blackboard, and so it's only the people in your class. That guest link that I showed you earlier, that's a guest link that you can give to yourself to kind of view it on an iPad or a different computer so you could see what was going on from the student standpoint. That link, I don't typically share it because then that would open it up to others. So there's my chat, there's my participant list, and let's go into the share content. Now, share content. This is where some really good stuff happens too. Share blank whiteboard. So if you do this, all of a sudden we have a screen. And I can write on the screen. You'll see it's quite elementary. We've got just a selection of colors. I can write, so I can draw on it. I can type. I can say hello. I can use the arrow and make my hello bigger, right? But there's not a lot I can do. I have an eraser tool so I can clear the whole thing, right? So everything I did there, this is of limited value just because it goes away so fast and you don't have that many tools to use with it. So that's there. What I really like is share application or screen. So when you share your application or screen, you have 3 options. You have your entire screen, you have application window, and you have the Chrome tab. Let's start with the application window. Don't do it. You have got to practice with this. It's not what you think. If you say, well, I'm sharing PowerPoint, that's great. I'm going to share PowerPoint this way. What it does is it converts PowerPoint into just kind of a series of images, and you don't have any animation on your images, nor can you write on them. It's very limited. It gets you into dangerous territory. So unless you've practiced extensively by yourself with that, I would stay away. Same with the Chrome tab. You can share a Chrome tab. If I were to share a Chrome tab right now with you all, which I don't want to do, but if I could share a Chrome tab, you would all be able to visit the same website as me. But I would be independently manipulating it and you'd be all on it. So if I shared Amazon with you all would be on Amazon doing your thing. So that's of limited value. But where you want to do is the entire screen. I have two screens on my computer, so I would have to pick the one I want to share. And notice when I click it, it has a little blue line around it. Then I can hit share. You may say to yourself, well, I only have one screen, so the share will not light up. Whether you have one screen or two, you have to click on the screen you want to share. So even if I only had one screen on my system, I have to click on it, or I don't have that blue, and you'll think it's not working. You'll say, that's not working, that's not working. Share audio means you could share your computer audio. Probably not a good idea. I also get questions from people who want to stream movies or videos in a Collaborate Ultra session. This is not the time to do it. If you are streaming Collaborate Ultra and then trying to stream a video on top of that with audio, you're just asking for all kinds of trouble. Much better strategy is to assign the movie or video clip outside of class, have people watch it, and then talk about it in class. But you're really getting into dangerous territory trying to stream on a streaming tool. It just doesn't work well. So share your entire screen, hit share. I'm not going to do it right now because I'm already sharing via Zoom. So again, I'm doing too many things at one time. But that's what you need to do. Make sure your entire screen is selected. There's nothing wrong with sharing your entire screen and then going to a website. And when you share your entire screen, you could go into Excel, you could go into PDF, you could do whatever, you could go to a website. The students are going to see what's on your screen, and that's a really good option. I'm just not a fan of application window or Chrome tab, so I'm going to cancel that. Okay, you can also share files, and you can only share image, PowerPoint, or PDF files, which is rather limiting in my opinion, because my notes for class are in Word. So if you have PowerPoint files you want to share, or you want to share a PDF, there you go, or an image, but you can't share other file types. So again, better off putting a URL in the chat window and letting students pick it up or emailing it to them. You do have a polling feature in Collaborate Ultra, really not what we're going to cover today. It is limited and it's rudimentary, and it's not available for grading. So kind of limited there. Breakout groups. Breakout groups are a great tool if you want to do it. So if you want to do it, let's show you. So we have two students here. We have me, and then we have my alter ego, Wendy Tietz, who is Tracy. So let's say I had more students, but in my main room, I have me and I have Tracy. Now I have two members, and now I have two groups, so I could put us each in a different group. So Tracy could be in one group, and if you had more students, you could put 4 or 5 people in a group, and they can talk together. They have Collaborate available to themselves, so you could have groups work together on group projects. Again, not for starters. So if you're just starting Collaborate Ultra, this is not where I would start. If you're going to do this, practice with your students ahead of time, because if you put students in groups, they can't hear you unless you put yourself in that group. And you can only talk to one group at a time until you bring them all back to the main room. So it's a useful tool, but probably not for beginners. So depending where you are on that learning scale, probably not where you want to go. Now we get to the settings panel. Now the settings panel, first of all, you can set up your camera and microphone. I always, 100% of the time, use my iPhone for audio. I never use my computer for audio. The reason I do that is I get pretty good audio quality off my phone. Right now, I'm using my iPhone and I'm using EarPods. So that's how I'm talking, that's my microphone. So you can use your camera and microphone, but know that sometimes the audio on your computer, depending on your Wi-Fi connection, is not the greatest. We're no longer at school with our great fast school bandwidth, right? We're at home and we have those limitations. So and I always use my phone in the classroom anyway, because I'm broadcasting live. Keep in mind, I'm broadcasting live to people in Collaborate Ultra, and I also have students in my classroom. So I just use my phone and I have an earpiece, and that's how we do it. But here's where you use your phone for audio. So when you click on that, what you're going to see is you're going to see a phone number, and then you're going to see a PIN code. And I just don't want to do that. You're going to be able to call that number and put in, whoops, I don't want to do that. Let's not do this. I'm clicking things. Yeah. So when you use your phone for audio, you're going to dial the number, you're going to put the PIN code in, and that gets you into it. And then you can use the mute button on your computer. You can use the mute button on your computer or on your phone to mute yourself and unmute yourself. If you use your computer for audio, down here at the bottom, you'll see a microphone and a video camera. That's where you turn your microphone and camera on and off. You do have to set them up first. But if you want to talk and you're using the computer, you have to click on the microphone button to turn yourself on. So that's just a caution. If you're using a headset with your computer, you're going to have to do it down there. Okay, and then you can control the volume of your speakers. So that's that. So now we have some other settings. We have notification settings. So remember, this is a class I've never been in before. So these are probably the defaults. All the notifications, if I'm having class, I'm turning off all these notifications because they're just going to keep popping up. You also probably want to tell your students about how to get to the notification settings because they're going to be saying, what's all these pop-ups? So we'll have pop-ups down along the bottom as people join, as people leave. So I just turn all those off because I don't need them. If you want them, go ahead and leave them on. That's easy enough. You do that in the session. And then those session settings that I told you about at the beginning, you can get into some of those right now. Here is where you could say, okay, now it's time for questions. I'm turning everyone's audio on. So now you could allow audio rather than during your lecture. If you want to do video, I would totally not recommend doing video right now because I know Collaborate Ultra is, quite frankly, pretty overwhelmed. Now, I did have, I'm going to leave this right now. So let's say I'm done with class. I'm going to leave class now, and I want to show you the difference between sessions and a room, okay? And I'm going to go into my regular class. So Tracy, I'm ending your class now. Okay, so I'm going to leave this session. It's going to ask me how my experience was. And where I'm going to end up now, I'm just going to close this window. And now I'm back in where we started, right? So here's Collaborate Ultra. And again, this is where we started. See, there's a course room, and that's what we did. And that's the absolute easiest thing to do. That's the only thing your students can do. Students cannot create sessions. So if you're doing this by yourself, I'd say that's the way to go, okay? But there's a few more things you can do. Let me show you my regular class. So if I go to my real class, remember we are on spring break right now, so there's no activity going on in this class. But if I go into Collaborate Ultra for my real classes, you will see I have my course room locked. To lock it and unlock it, you just toggle it. There's a little session mod that you can lock it and unlock it. I leave mine locked because then students can't get in it by accident. What I have done is I've set up 4 sessions every week. I have class at 7:45 and 8:50 a.m. So I have a session on Monday and Wednesday. So students in that time will go into one of these sessions. When that time gets here, this will be bolded. So students can only go in the session that is available right then. So they can go in either one of those. They can go in, I have Friday optional help session. So the thing where you might want to make sessions is you can view reports. So let's say I want to look at the reports that are available. So you can see this was after shutdown. that one we were messing around with. So let's take this one. No, I'm not going to go into one with real students. So what this does is it gives you, let's view this report, because this one we were just practicing with my GAs. So if I view this report, it's going to show me who attended, what, and some information about that. Again, I can't get into it because of privacy, but that is the advantage of scheduling sessions, is you will have some reporting available to you. Is it enough for grading? Probably not, and I wouldn't really be too focused on grading whether someone attended or not, because our students do have issues with, having bandwidth to be able to practice. So if we go back into, well, I think we're done with the live demo of Collaborate Ultra. I did want to talk about a few other things here. So now I'm going to talk about what's not available. So I showed you the basics of how you can use Collaborate Ultra. Collaborate 2 weeks ago, shortly after school started converting to remote teaching and learning, Collaborate Ultra had to remove some features to be able to deliver a good experience for everyone. One of the features they've removed is the timer. There used to be a timer that you could set that would count down, like I would set it at the beginning of class, 50 minutes down to 0. So it would count down on the screen. The advantage to that, so this is kind of a weird quirk. Collaborate Ultra does not consider sharing your screen in PowerPoint to be activities. So Collaborate Ultra will shut down the session after 10 minutes of inactivity. So in theory, if you were going to have a class and you would say, share your PowerPoint and talk for 50 minutes without stopping, Collaborate Ultra could stop your session because there's no activity. So the timer was a way for us to keep that session active regardless of what was going on in the chat room. So what I have done to counteract that is now, and it's a good practice anyway, now after 10 minutes, I kind of pause, I type in the chat window, does anybody have any questions? Remember I showed you that guest link that you can get? You can put that guest link in your iPad or in an incognito window on your computer, and you can keep an eye on the chat room that way. Because when I share my screen in Collaborate Ultra, I can't see the chat window. But if you use that guest link and put it in an incognito window or in an iPad, you can keep an eye on what's going on there, and you can chat in that window and keep it active. So that timer going away, a little bit of a hassle, but not terrible, right? Also, there used to be a notification that students were typing. So if you'd ask a question, you could see if someone was typing. That has gone away for them temporarily. There was also a network status for participants. That would be where I showed you, they said their experience is excellent, their experience is good, or whatever. It used to have green and red and yellow coding, and it used to actually give you their upload speed and their download speed. That's gone for now. So there's some other things they removed, but those are the big things that I know they've temporarily removed. And I know they're going to put those back someday. But for now, if you're looking for those features, they did come down. I did a Collaborate Ultra session, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and they were all there. And right after that, they disabled them. So that's why they are not there. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tracy.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Wendy. This has been a great session, and we have a lot of questions. So let's go through the questions that we have. Some of them you answered as we're going along, so we're not going to address those questions. But let's just get started with our first one. So this faculty member says that their college they were advised by their college to not allow guest access because unauthorized students could access the link. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, you have to share that guest link. So if you allow guest access, it's not that people can just find your session and go in it. They have to guess that link. So I'm not too worried about that. I really like it as that workaround. I'm not sharing that link anywhere, but I really like that workaround to be able to see what's going on in my class. So if it bothers you, that's fine. You know, another thing you can do, a workaround, is you can ask your college for a second login to Collaborate Ultra. Like you saw that Tracy was on as me. I actually have 2 or 3 logins for the class. So you could not allow guest access. You could get another login and you could add yourself to your course as a student, and then you could log in as a student and keep an eye on things that way.
So just to clarify also about the guest, can a guest that doesn't have access to your Blackboard course get into Blackboard Collaborate using the guest link?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if you share that guest link, they can get in. So that's why I'm saying you wouldn't publicize it. You could copy it and use it on the side. And again, I'm not an expert on that, but I've used that workaround for a couple of years.
So here's another question related to audio. If you turn off the audio for your students, is the raise hand option removed?
I do not think so. No, it's not, because my students, I regularly have large sections and audio is not an option for my students, and they can still raise their hand. It becomes rather meaningless because they don't need to raise their hand for anything. So it's still there, but you don't need it.
So related to audio, I know you spoke earlier, Wendy, about how you use your earbuds for your audio portion. This faculty member wants to know, how do you combine smartphone for audio with desktop without using earbuds?
Well, you can just talk into your phone, for example. You could, because you can hold your phone. I have done that upon occasion once in a while. I will not. I have a Bluetooth earpiece that I typically use because it's only one ear, just because preference, right? But if you don't have anything, you can just hold your phone like a constant 8 inches from your mouth and talk, or you could sit it on your desk and talk the whole time. Do you know if you sit it on your desk and you're typing, they're going to hear all that typing. So you can talk right into it, and that works as well. But there's really inexpensive Bluetooth earpieces that just hook over your ear. I think you can get them for like $25, $30 on Amazon if they're still shipping things like that. But, or the wired ear things that come from Amazon, those work as well. So you can use, but you can talk into your phone. I have Android phones. In my limited experience, I had an Android a couple years ago, and it didn't produce the same quality of sound as an iPhone. So I'm just plugging iPhones just because it's been a good experience for me. It's not to say you can't use computer audio, but I think you have more tendency to not be able to keep up. And I have had really good luck with the phone over the years.
So another question would be, we have a faculty on here who wants to use Blackboard Collaborate session for office hours, and they would like to be able to give access to several different Blackboard courses at the same time. Is there a way to combine Collaborate into one session?
Okay, so Collaborate, the old Collaborate, you could combine sections and you had one Collaborate room. With Collaborate Ultra, you can't do that, but there is a workaround. So I have a class that has 2 different Blackboard sections, and I want to only have office hours in one. So what I do in that case is that guest link, again, it comes back to that guest link. In one of the classes, I copy the guest link from the one that, so I put the Collaborate Ultra office hour session in one of the classes. Then I copy the guest link from that session. So you have to set up a session for office hours. I copy the guest link from that session, and then I go to the other Blackboard section and add it as a link in my course. In that left menu, you can add a web link, and then I just put it in there as a web link. So those students are actually joining as guests, and I have never had a problem with that. So that's a way to work around. Also, if you're going to have office hours in Collaborate Ultra, keep in mind that your session can go dormant if there's no activity. So if you're sitting in there by yourself, that timer feature's gone now. So about every 10 minutes, I don't know what the exact cutoff is on when a session goes inactive, but every 10 minutes or so, you're going to have to type hello to yourself or something to keep it active.
So we have another question on here. This question says, if you were to put your students into groups, could you assign them, each student, to a specific group, or is it only a random assignment?
Either one,
Okay.
either way.
Great. And also, we have several questions about recording sessions. So can you just go over how to record a session? And then also on here, can you record in each session multiple times, for example, in each class?
Okay, so how you record a session is you go into, I'm going to leave the PowerPoint for a moment. I'm going back to Blackboard. I'm going back into my empty course here. So if I go into Collaborate Ultra, the way I'm going to record the session as I go into my session or my course room, whichever one I'm doing, once I'm in there, I am going to hit the little hamburger menu in the upper left corner and hit start recording. And when I do that, so I could start recording. Okay, so my session's being recorded right now. It's recording nothing. And when I'm done with my session, I'm going to go back into it and I'm going to stop recording. Okay, so then I'm done with my class. You could start and stop in theory. I have never done that. Sometimes it takes a while for the recording to process, and I'm not sure if you can start and stop it within a class period. I'm not thinking that's great practice, but because again, Collaborate Ultra is not typically a tool you would use to record something ahead of time. You're typically recording live. If you ever want to see the sessions for Collaborate Ultra, I don't know if that one will process yet, but if you ever want to see your recordings, this little hamburger menu here, if you click there, you will get to the recordings menu. Okay, and we had, okay, so I've added this a couple times. So every time I add it, here it is. We have some recordings that are in here already, and they're going to show up. Notice the one that I just did isn't in here yet. It takes, depending on Blackboard and in your institution, it can take up to an hour for it to appear. So if you ever record it and you don't see it right away, don't panic, it's there somewhere. And if you, here's where you could play recordings, but here's also where you would get the downloads. And your students are going to have a hard time finding the recordings, because I can't tell you how many emails I get that say, I can't find the recording. So they have to know to click here and hit recording. So the, I'm going to show you something. I want to show you a couple documents that I'll try to figure out how to post online. I have a couple things that I've shared with people. Okay, so here's the menu. So there's a couple things I've shared with people. Here are some files. This is kind of a best practices thing. Here's my PowerPoint, and I put these at the beginning of my class. So you'll see I have my little Bitmoji there. So I have that, and this is how I start class. And then right before we start recording, I'm asking them, can they hear me? And they'll type in the chat room if they can hear me. And then if they can't hear me, here's where I remind them how to get audio, okay? And then here's my other standard slide. If I'm teaching by myself without a GA, I'm just asking them to hold their questions till the end. So I can post those PowerPoints for you because I think they're very useful to have just a standard thing about showing your students how to get audio on the fly. So that's one thing I'll figure out how to post. Let me see what else I have in here. Oh, the other one, I have this document that I have that I would be happy to share. This is how to find the recordings. So that's a screenshot. Of course, it's for Kent State, but I think I blurred a lot of stuff out there. And then the other thing, and this is very unique to me, but it helps your students feel better. This is a document of that I send to my students. And again, this was before all this craziness happened. This is at the beginning of the semester. I'm telling them how to attend class using Collaborate Ultra. So that's what I do to tell them ahead of time. And then I typically have a practice session for Collaborate Ultra before the semester begins. And then here's some information. So I will post those on our website after this. So if you want those documents, sometime in the next 24 hours, I'll post those.
Those were very
so
helpful,
I'm back, Tracy.
Wendy. Thank you for sharing those. I have one clarifying question about the recordings. That if you were to use that general course room that you showed us at the very beginning, every time you go into that and create and click the recording button, it's going to create a new recording every time you do the recording button, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great, excellent. So those handouts that Wendy was just talking about, we'll get those posted on our website, accountingisanalytics.com, so that you can have access to those to those handouts. We also have a faculty member here who wants some more information about how to administer exams. And on our website, we have done a webinar recording last week or 2 weeks ago about administering exams in an online class. So on our website, accountingisanalytics.com, if you click on the webinar recordings link, you'll find a whole webinar that discusses how to administer exams in an online environment. Excellent. Let's see, I'm just making sure that we've got everything covered as far as the answers. There was a question about with those recording links, instead of having the students try to find the recordings, could you just post the link to the recording?
No, if you're going to download the recording, there's not a link to the recording. The recordings are all there in the order in which you made them. I actually have a little thing, Collaborate Ultra recordings, and it brings up a screenshot of how to find them, and that seems to work. But if you wanted to post a link to the recordings, what you would end up doing is you'd have to download the recording, you would have to upload it to a service like YouTube, and then you'd have to get the URL and post it somewhere in your course. So I think it's much better to just make a screenshot and post it right below there. So once students find it, they can find it again.
Okay, excellent. So I think that we have gone over all of the different questions that we have today. Thank you so much, Wendy. This has been a very informative session. We want to encourage everyone who's joining us today or watching the recording to please follow our blog. You can enter your email address and you'll get announcements about any of our future webinars and also announcements about any of our blog postings. We do have some upcoming online teaching webinars that we're doing in the next week. Next week, we'll be hosting a webinar that talks about how to use a Microsoft Surface to write on your screen on Tuesday. So if you're thinking about maybe getting a Surface or you already have a Surface, we'll be doing that next week. We're also going to have a session on how to use Zoom for office hours or class. So if instead of using Blackboard Collaborate or in addition to, you're thinking about using Zoom, we're going to do a session next Wednesday on that. And then we'll have a session to finish out our week next week on using Kahoot, a super fun tool to create some student engagement and competition in your classes. So those are available for you. And of course, you can find our recordings, as we shared with you earlier, on our accountingisanalytics.com website. And we hope that you believe that online teaching is challenging, just like creating a gourmet meal is. But we know that you have the steps you need in order to be successful for it. So online teaching is like serving a gourmet meal instead of a peanut butter sandwich. Again, thanks so much for joining us today. You can go to accountingisanalytics.com to get a copy of the recording for today, and also those resources that Wendy shared. Thank you again. Thanks a lot, Wendy and Jennifer.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.